Hello children over 30, it's Drew back here with another product review, and today we're talking about probably the most aptly named product that I can think of offhand. The Footprint Game Changer insoles and the Heel Saviors heel pads. So this is actually my second set of each of these. The first set's sitting in my drifts right now. I first got these at the recommendation of man, I don't know if I'm supposed to say his name, but suffice to say it's somebody that jumps off things a lot and is really good at jumping off things. And you can look up videos of them. They do all kind of tests where they like drop bowling balls and have like glass involved and stuff like that. And yeah, it's kind of crazy to watch because you can see these other insoles, you know, based off the tests that they made for their own product. You know, it's a pretty stark difference. Like, you know, the ball will bounce and break the glass, and then on the one that has this insole on it, it'll just like drop and maybe bounce a little bit, and that's it. But there's always a bit of question, or I always question when I see things like that. It's like, I mean, I'm pretty sure that I could come up with a test to show how awesome anything is. Some way that it just performs better than other things out there, you know, whatever that may be. There was that video of the speed test of the frames, and there was like a plastic big wheel frame and a metal big wheel frame, and dude just like rolled down a hill in each of them and like based his test on that. And it's like, well, yeah, based on that test, a plastic frame is going to do pretty well compared to aluminum because, I mean, you're not striding, so you're not transferring any power, so power transfer isn't going to have an effect on it. Anyway, so there's a few cool technologies at play in these things. The first, according to the back of the box, it's made of military-grade, ultra-high density memory foam. Which means it contains 3 to 4 times the amount of material per square whatever as typical memory foam. So it's really dense memory foam. The second is that these are heat moldable through the arch, and I think a little bit of the heel, mainly the arch. They come in 3 and 5 millimeters, and of course the 5 millimeter ones you're going to get a little bit more play in that heat moldability of the arch. With the 3 millimeter, it didn't quite come up as high as I was hoping, but it's certainly cool, and it certainly provides a really good fit compared to, you know, something like Superfeet, which have a very set arch to them. And the nice thing about the heat moldability of these is you don't need one of those skate oven things to do it. You just need a regular oven. You set it to like 200 degrees, somewhere around there, and toss them in for a few minutes and take them out and put them in and put your feet in. And I mean, it's a pretty straightforward process. So they look like this when you take them out of the box. I've been getting the 3 millimeter ones because unfortunately I'm not skating anything that can take a 5 millimeter insole right now. A lot of the rollerblade skates that I've had have 5 millimeter insoles. Most of the other stuff doesn't. So like Flying Eagle, you're going to want a 3 millimeter one. Seba, you're going to want a 3 millimeter one. Solomon, theoretically 3 millimeter too. I haven't put these in a pair of Solomons. That would be insane. So one of my goals for this spring, coming back to the blades after Ice Blade winter season, was to start jumping off more things and jumping onto more things, developing a sort of awareness in the air and, you know, being comfortable with that sort of thing. And prior to purchasing these, the only skates that I had that were really good for that kind of thing were Solomons. And a lot of the stuff I've been doing lately, I mean, I just really prefer being on a free skate boot with a 165 frame. You know, I mean, for deep edges and stuff like that, it's just soles aren't conducive to that. Like, they trip you up a lot. So yeah, I talked to a dude who jumps off a lot of stuff, and he's like, yeah, you should check these out. So I checked them out, and they changed the game, dude. What can I say? Like, the first day that I had them in, I went out and I wasn't really jumping off huge stuff. I don't jump off huge stuff, you know, like the equivalent of like a 5 set of stairs is probably the biggest that I'll go most of the time. But yeah, I was doing various things like that, I think for a good like 2 hours, and I came home and like my ankles felt fine, and the next day my ankles felt fine. It was ridiculous. Like, the amount of shock that these little 3 millimeter insoles absorb is just like insane. Like you put them in any skate and it's like you're instantly in Solomon's and you can just jump off stuff and like practice jumping off stuff. It's not, you know, do this gap a couple times and then my feet hurt so bad that I gotta go do something else. Like it's a game changer. And for me this season, you know, with the goals that I have, like the ability to practice stuff like that, again, just really like changes the game. The last really big jump session that I had, I went out and skated for 2 hours and jumped onto and off of things and practicing 180s and grabs and all that stuff. And then I came back that night and skated for another like hour and a half. And that last like 45 minutes, I could tell like I'd been jumping off some stuff. But the next day when I woke up, like my quads were on fire and my hamstrings were on fire, and you know, my calves had a little bit of burn to them, and like my stomach was really tight, but no ankles. Like these took care of all of that. The other thing that I like about them, and this goes back to the ultra high density thing, is I'm a total nerd about power transfer. If I'm gonna put something on my skates, like it's always a concern, like how is this going to affect the responsiveness of my skates? And a lot of heel pads, insoles, stuff like that, they make them really soft, you know, which feels good to have your foot in and skate around in and stuff like that, but it makes your skates go so much slower. Like it's as nice as it is, it's also like a really bad experience, you know. And even like the yellow super feet that I have, I get some of that. It's just that any portion on a heel pad or insole or what have you that can flex, if it flexes, that's power transfer that you're losing. I mean, that's just how it is. So that's energy being dissipated in a way that's not generating power for skating. That's usually why I end up taking the yellow super feet out of most of my skates. Like they feel really nice, but it's just like not the best skating experience. With these, the front portion, like where your toes are, is a tiny bit squishy. I wouldn't say more squishy than your typical really dense footbed, but you can kind of manipulate it with your fingers a little bit. I mean, you know, if you press down, there's some give. But the heel portion and through the arch, especially after you heat mold it, like it's just really, really, really stiff. I can tell that when I press down into it, you know, it's coming back to Solomon's, I guess. A lot of times when you press through the heels on Solomon's, you can feel there's a little bit of squish to it, and it's not a lot. They use like a relatively high density foam, you know, but there's still like some play to it, and you can feel the squish when you really press into it. I can't really feel any squish in these, given I'm only about 135 pounds. But the amount of edge work and stuff I do, I mean, I'm very familiar with pressing through the heels and doing so from different angles and stuff like that. And these just feel really secure doing so. So I'd probably recommend them to somebody based on that alone, like even somebody that wasn't doing a lot of jumps, just for the fact that as a consequence of the really dense heel and arch portion, they're going to have a better skating experience. Side note about these, they are about 45-50 bucks, I think. So not the cheapest, not the most expensive, and they do apparently degrade over time. So I think they recommend every year or so you change them, depending on the size of the thing you jump off of, I'm guessing, and the frequency that you do so may affect that. These little heel savior things, they are probably the thinnest heel pads I've seen. Apparently they start out 6 millimeters and then taper to like, I don't know, probably like 1.5, 2, something like that. They feel a little bit squishier than the insoles for some reason. I'm not sure. I think technically it's the same material, but maybe these have like 2 layers of thing and one of them's more dense. I'm not sure. But with heel pads, I tend to have this difficulty where, I mean, the height that you put your foot in a skate can change a lot of things. A skate that feels perfectly fine, you know, once you put in a thicker insole or heel pad or something like that, a lot of the times that, I mean, you don't think that elevating your foot like by a centimeter or so is a big deal, but it super is, and it super affects like how flexy your cuffs are going to be and just how your skate feels on your leg and stuff. I mean, For whatever reason, a centimeter is a big deal in rollerblading in a lot of regards. I mean, wheel size, spacing of the wheels, ride height. These being super thin is nice because, well, A, you're dealing with less adjustment in that regard, so it's going to feel about as similar as it can. And these start out at 6 millimeters, but they taper off pretty fast. So if you think about the actual footbed in most skates, like your heel kind of sits back a little bit. So by the time your heel makes contact with this, I would say it's at least down to 5, maybe 4 millimeters. And secondly, even though it's super thin, it does a job of a much bigger heel pad. Like, again, these things are super crazy effective. It's also nice and wide, so if you're skating a removable liner skate, I like to put them under the liner. It just fills that space perfectly for some reason. It was like it was made to go there. I don't know. But if not, you can always trim it down. Just put your insole on top of it and trace around it with a knife, or cut it out or whatever. But I mean, it's a material that you can cut through pretty easy. And I think these are only like $10 or $15. So even if you screw it up, it's not the super end of the world. Just a general side note for people that are new to skating, insoles of different profiles and widths and heel pads of different profiles and widths are something that you're going to want to have on hand. Every skate fits differently. Even different molds within the same company a lot of times will have a drastically different fit. So the more ways you have to manipulate the fit of your skates, the easier time you're going to have getting a really good fit out of them, which should be your top concern. So that's it. Footprint, Game Changer insoles, and Heel Savior heel pads. They changed the game. If you're somebody that likes to jump off things or is looking to benefit from a super dense footbed with some custom heat moldable arch support that's really going to improve their skating experience, I would definitely recommend these.